Welcome to the Grappling Grappling Rewind Podcast.
Welcome to this week on the Grappling Rewind Podcast. In this week's show, we are going to recap Fight to Win 178, headlined by Xande Ribeiro. We're going to preview Fight to Win 179 and BJJ Bet 2 that has a crazy heavyweight or like middle heavyweight GP. As always in the show, I'm your host, Maine, the co-host.
Zach.
How you doing, Zach?
Good.
We had a big old weekend this weekend.
Yeah.
Had some fun. So there's not a ton to recap this episode, but there is a ton of news.
Plethora of
so
news.
This week's show is going to be a little weird because we're going to have way more news than we usually have. So if you're not down for that and you want just previews, you can jump around in the show. I just wanted to caveat that at the beginning. Where do you want to start for this week's news?
So I think we start with the most recent and most exciting news for most people in the community is the Danaher breakup. I mean, people cannot stop talking about that group of people in the first place.
Not
and
at
now
all.
they're breaking up. It's a lot of personality in one room. Not exactly surprising.
There's a great article that basically essentially said that. It's like, that's a lot of guys in one room. It's not very surprising that they would eventually, make some sort of split.
Yeah, and it's not like there's some rooms that have existed throughout history of like really good competitors.
This is also not that uncommon in Jiu-Jitsu. Like every big team breaks up.
Yeah.
Like TT broke up, like Atos sort of broke up as much. Like what was
Atos split quite a bit before. Yeah.
What was the other? There's like,
Atos split
the Alliance
and then became
split.
TT, right?
TT.
Right?
No, it wasn't Atos. It was one before Atos. Because Atos.
Not Atos. Atos split
was
from
TT,
It was
and TT
Alliance.
was a split that split. Yeah,
big Alliance split. Yeah. Anyways, they split all the time.
Yep, not uncommon, but this is just the most notable one. And because it happened today, and we're recording this is Monday, June 26th, we have some information. I had more information that has since become public since now that we're doing the show, so it's nice to be
20 minutes ago.
20 minutes, we can talk about it. Gordon Ryan and John Danaher are going to go to Austin, Texas, and open up a gym, a school. They've talked about that before. That kind of got leaked on Rogan a while back. I think like 35 minutes in or something like that. They say it.
But then I thought it was, if my understanding of the situation at that time was that they were talking about doing that in Austin, and then that changed with the Puerto Rico situation, and they all moved to Puerto Rico. And I think the understanding that a lot of us had was that was put on hold. And maybe it's just maybe the decision was made to break up, and then they said, okay, well, we're going to go back with our original plan and move to Texas. Or I could also see a scenario where some of them wanted to move to Texas, and that was a catalyst for the breakup. One of the things that someone has been talked about, there's a lot of rumors going on about this, and so I don't want to spread rumors, but there are things that could potentially make sense. One of which is just that they weren't getting a lot of privates and things like that down there. It's a little harder to make money when you're
an
at
island
a place.
nation, 3.5 hours flight from the United States.
Yeah, to put it kindly, it's a little harder to make money there. And
there was also some discussion about medical care.
Yeah.
Apparently they're having, I had heard rumors. I hate doing rumors. That there was difficulty, especially with Nikki's injury now, that like they're looking at like medical care down there, and like Gordon's stomach issues, he had to go to New York again, and that there's not adequate like really good medical care for professional athletes in the side of the sport that they do, and like specialists, you have to go to the mainland to find these specialists that you would want to work with as a professional athlete. And I think there was an issue with Nikki's stuff where they were like, okay, we keep having to fly back to the mainland to find specialists for like professional athlete related injuries.
And I mean I think a lot of these things were brought up when the move was announced to Puerto Rico. I think a lot of people were like, that seems weird for all of the reasons that we just listed. And so I guess none of this is a huge surprise, but what is, I think one of the bigger surprises from all of this is
for me, this is the biggest. The biggest surprise is that John mentioned Eddie Cummings in his breakup post.
Yeah, that was
the
big surprise.
Biggest surprise. If you know any of the history there, I have no interest in rehashing it on the show. You can go find it yourself. But that was a very interesting thing to remember him as one of the founding members of DDS was very interesting, and it was cool. It was like, that brings me back to like when I was like still like, professional jiu-jitsu, like it could be a thing, and now we're 4 years into the show.
When DDS was like a whisper.
When DDS
and
was
only
like,
people that really paid attention knew, and then it was Eddie Cummings. Eddie Cummings was like the name you knew from them, and then it was like, and then there's also this Gary Tonin guy who's like really good. And Gordon's name wasn't even around yet at that point.
Nicky Ryan was still a child you had heard about. Like, it was a fun time. And then now we do this show, and we're 4+ years into covering jiu-jitsu professionally. So they mentioned Eddie Cummings.
yeah, the big deal. I mean, Eddie Cummings being mentioned was nice. Actually,
It was
I thought.
nice, yeah.
The biggest surprise from all this is that Nicky Ryan is not going with Gordon and John.
And I can speculate to all end why that happened.
Oh,
I
yeah.
have no
reason,
idea why.
No reason to
like,
start rumors about that.
No, that's
but
really
it is interesting that happened. And so he's apparently sticking with Nicky
The B
Rod.
Squad, which is
the
funny.
B Squad. It was a Craig Jones style post because in true fashion for Craig Jones, nothing can be done seriously.
Which I appreciate.
And I really appreciate that as well, yeah.
He's a very lighthearted jiu-jitsu personality, and it's
so he said the
guy.
B Squad, in quotes from Craig Jones.
Which is Krellinston, Nicky Rod, Nicky Ryan, and
himself. Yeah, he said they're sticking together, but no indication of where they're going to be, whether they're sticking.
They made the
staying in
post
Puerto
from
Rico.
Austin, Texas, was where Craig had the post tagged in, but
That doesn't really
means
mean much.
means nothing. So who knows?
It would also be really weird if that group
also moved to Austin,
went
Texas.
to Austin and then did something separate from Danaher and Gordon, and then we could speculate all kinds about what that. But that would certainly be unusual.
That'd be super unusual. Yeah, you guys move across the country into a different, like back to the mainland to the same city and don't train together. Like, there's rumors that Tonan's going to go back to New Jersey. Nicky Rod's been spending a lot of time in New Jersey in those rooms. If you look at his Instagram post, his Instagram stuff, he's been back and forth a lot.
Yeah.
Again, I don't want to speculate and like get in anyone's personal business. This is just huge news because it is one of the most dominant no-gi teams, headlined by the most dominant no-gi guy, and they've announced a big split and a big move. And you were actually excited about something that I wasn't excited about at all.
Which was, what did I say?
We're going to see Gordon and Craig fight again, possibly.
Oh, yeah. So I think Gordon and I think not immediately, obviously, but I think if given some time, if Craig is not training actively with Gordon, if Gordon's stomach issues get better and he takes on fights beyond the
Galval fight at ADCC 2022,
if he takes other fights after that, something else happens and he's feeling better, I think that becomes an interesting fight because for so long we've had Gordon and Craig training together. That makes it sort of a less interesting fight because we've seen Craig lose a couple times in the past. We know that
3 to be exact,
3
by sub.
We've seen
Gordon.
Craig lose 3 times in the past. We know that they're training together and Craig makes posts about being the second best all the time, and so we can maybe make some assumptions that Craig feels like
I don't think we can make assumptions. We can Craig has straight up said in interviews.
I was being nice.
Okay. Well, no, it's like, I don't think there's need to be nice. Like Craig has, it's not like being mean. Craig has said in interviews that Gordon gets the better of him. Jordan's the best guy in the world, and he beats up everyone.
But I think there's a distinct possibility that if Gordon is not feeling great and not training incredibly well, and Craig goes off and starts training somewhere else, develops skills outside of his common set right now, things that maybe Gordon hasn't seen, he has a real chance of beating Gordon in another year or two, depending on how things play out. And I think that seeing that match would be really interesting with them on separate teams, whereas that wasn't really an option if they're training in the same room 100% of the time.
No, we saw it at ADCC with Gordon and
Tonan.
Yep. And both those guys were like, "Yeah, I hated that. Was a weird match to go and submit my first coach on the big stage in front of everyone." Again, I'm assuming they're still going to share the same sentiment for a couple of years at least.
Probably. And also what Donaher's post said in particular, specifically, I think, was that they're not going to be training out of the same room. It didn't necessarily say that the team is splitting up 100%.
Well, I think he said break. I think they said
he said
break
that,
up.
but I don't know if that meant we're breaking up the team, as in the team is going to be in different places, or if it was just worded. I remember him using language. I guess we could just literally look it up right now. But
let's speculate like this. It's more fun. If you want to know, look, everyone's read it at this
Everyone's
point,
read it. But
and they'll just message us and go, "You got that wrong," and I'll go, "That's a thing we do sometimes." Yes.
The way that I had read it, though, it seemed like maybe they were still going to be considering themselves training partners in some degree and train together occasionally. Not it didn't seem like a brutal, we all hate each other breakup. It just seemed like we're going to go different ways. But then
that's what it seemed
maybe
like.
they end up in the same room for build-ups or
for
camps and things like that. There's a chance that they are still on the same team, but are just training in different locations most of the time. And then, we don't know what the structure is going to be.
So I realize that I've just hit my limit on how much I want to speculate about this.
Yeah, me too.
We're done. You can go find everyone's posts and Instagram stories, and it's wildly interesting. And in 3 days, you'll probably know more about this than we know right now. I'm kind of honestly excited because this stuff doesn't. Big team breakups don't happen very often, and they don't happen very often with the best guys in the world in no-gi. So let's see. In other news, do you want to talk about?
So who's number one? 155 division championship.
Turn your
is
screen
pretty
so I can see it
exciting.
because I actually don't have it pulled up.
Here we go.
That is we have a crazy
crazy
lineup. We have, you want to go through the lineup?
No, go ahead.
We have Gio
You'll say the names
Martinez.
right.
We have Cole Abate. I do say the names right. We have Ethan Constant. We have Cisneros. We have Cade Rotolo. We have Candide Marcial, Cobrinha Jr. We have Mikey Musumeci, and we have, I can't place his name. Not Pato.
It's Pato.
Yeah, okay, yeah. Diego
Pato.
Oliveira. That is absolutely crazy, and that's a huge step up for Cole Abate.
Yeah, that was the first thing that I was going to point out too, is Cole being thrown to the damn wolves here. Like he's had a couple good wins.
Yes.
At these who's number one events, but they've been against people where you say, okay, this makes sense as a
stepping stone matchup to your career
for a 16-year-old.
Yes.
These are no longer matches that I would say, oh, this makes sense for a 16-year-old. Given what we've seen with Cade, though,
world champ, medalist, world champ, number 1, number 2, number 3. It's like,
yeah,
dude.
Yeah, and now we saw the Rotolo brothers sort of thrown to the wolves in similar fashion, and they excelled and have been amazing. So there's no reason to believe that he won't hold up well in this bracket.
No, he's still the AOJ Atos camp. I mean, that camp broke up a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, something like that.
Yeah.
Like he's still under the tutelage of the Mendez brothers.
Yeah.
If Mendez brothers can do anything, it's bring up new prospects. Look at Tynan Daupra, who's in the next thing we'll talk about here in a minute. But I am absolutely amped. $30,000 on the line for this bracket. And if there was a bracket that's going to be worth $30,000,
this is a good one.
This is a good one. It's like nobody in this bracket would I go like, oh, really them? It's like everyone has a shot. Again, you have Mikey Musumeci in your bracket, which is a tough task for anyone.
Yeah, I mean, speculation here because we still don't have. I don't think that we have the matchups yet. We have who's in the bracket. We just have who's in it. We don't have the matchups.
And they usually
that makes a difference.
They usually do bracketing based on by ranking. But I'm very curious for this one. A lot of these guys are in different weight classes, and a lot of these guys do have no parity for. They haven't faced each other. We just haven't seen most of these guys against each other. So
except Musumeci and Gio, which we saw just recently,
like 2 weeks ago, right?
And Mikey wasn't able to finish him. It was a dominant performance for Mikey, I think, but he ended up winning after the 20 minutes was up.
Yeah, very cleanly by points.
Yeah, by points, but it says something about Gio. I mean, Gio's always been known as a guy that is incredibly resilient.
Absurdly, ridiculously hard to finish. Yes, that's a good way to put it.
And so it makes sense that he didn't get finished, but it's still something.
Oh yeah, definitely.
And it is hard to vote against Mikey, and maybe 2 months ago
he is going to be 20 to 30 pounds smaller than most of these guys.
That's true.
Which is interesting.
Yeah, but he's also someone we've seen have a match against someone that was 120 pounds heavier than him and perform rather well.
What's up, Muhammad Ali?
Yeah, right. Mm-hmm. So I agree. Being down 20 pounds is a significant disadvantage. I think if anyone can handle it, it's probably Mikey.
But it is Mikey. I hate that is a thing. It's like, but it is Mikey Musumeci.
Yeah.
We have two ends. We have two guys. We have Gordon at the top weight classes. It's like, it is Mikey. Gordon. He can get away with it. We have at the bottom weight classes. We have Mikey. Yeah. Like, it is Mikey. He can't get away with it.
Yeah, I think if we had we've talked about this off the show, maybe even on the show.
Yeah, we talked about it. It's very rare it comes up on the show, but yeah.
But we've talked about how nice it would be if there was a situation where we had an absolute, a heavyweight absolute, and then a lower weight absolute, like a cutoff at
a
70
or 70 below, and
60, something like that.
A couple events,
right?
like New York Pro does that for IBJJF. A couple events, I think AJP does something like that. Like certain events will do it, but they are few and far between.
But if we saw that more regularly, I think Mikey would be the person dominating those, despite being slightly under the 155 or 170 cap or whatever. 40 pounds
lighter than this guy. Mikey Musumeci is like, it's okay.
Yeah,
I'll get him anyway.
Yeah. So I think to make your comparison, I think that's fair.
Yeah. I'm very, very excited for the bracket. We're starting to get the rest of the brackets, but that's the one that we actually have full right now. Yep. But if any of the other brackets or anything, the other bracket we have is Maisa Bastos is in there for one of the women's brackets. It is going to be an absolutely crazy event. This is the level of talent in a tournament that I want to see.
Absolutely.
If you're making events, please do it like this, because this is like...
Please have $30,000 around and be able to make it like this.
Yeah, please put the best guys in the world.
This is going to be an incredible.
And then guys, I want to see how this plays out.
Yeah.
There's every single one. You could put every single one of these guys against anyone in this bracket, and I'm excited for that match as a super fight. Better yet, a tournament. And that's always exciting for me to cover.
And I think that there's I think Mikey's a clear favorite in my eyes here. I mean, everyone in this bracket's amazing, but Mikey's been so dominant lately. I think you could throw a vote for Kennedy, throw a vote for Ethan Krellinson.
Mikey, Cade, or Kennedy, think are the top runners in this. Mikey versus Cade and Mikey versus Kennedy are absurd matches, and so very, very curious, how those will play out. But I think I will need to look at these games and then be able to try to pick against Mikey Musumeci. Yeah. I don't know if I will be able to. So that's that for news. In other news, the IBJJF has announced the dates for the Worlds for 2021. They are December 9th through 12th in Anaheim, California. It's an event that's happening.
That's assuming that California lets that happen at that time, but it probably will.
Yeah. And then we also have announcements for the IBJJF Heavyweight and Middleweight Grand Prix. Right now, we just have Tynan Dalpra, I think, at middleweight for that.
That's all I could find because it's really hard to navigate the IBJJF website.
There's no other information right now out.
Is that it? That's just it?
If you couldn't find it, and I couldn't find it, either I'm an idiot, which is very possible, or it's just not out there yet.
Yeah.
And that's probably what I would guess is just the information just not out there yet.
Yeah, but there's been some announcement about that. What else we got? There was something else, wasn't there?
Yeah, there was something else, and I forgot what it was. The rumors in the opening school in Texas, the breakup.
No, I think that's about it.
Yeah, that's about it. And I'm surely forgetting something, but I think that does it. Yeah. Let's move. What is it? There's something else that was really important. ADCC announced trials dates.
Couldn't be that important.
All right, let's move on.
Yeah, that's on.
So moving on to our recap of Fight to Win 179. This one was headlined by. It's headlined by Victor
Hugo and Augusto. Yeah, man. But Trovo and Xande were the first of the three matches we're going to talk about in terms of orders. But I think we should probably start with Hugo.
Yeah, start with that match. So Victor Hugo took on you do this. I'm trying to pull up results here on my phone.
Victor Hugo took on I can never pronounce this name. I'm bad at pronouncing names.
Guillermo Augusto?
Yeah, that's difficult for me to enunciate. So I'm going to stick with Augusto, even though people generally refer to him by his first name.
Guillermo.
Yeah, I can make my mouth make that noise.
I took Spanish for 7 years. This is like the one time it pays off.
Like a white dude that took Latin, so...
You took Latin?
Yeah, well, it was a mistake.
That makes sense.
Yeah, it doesn't actually help that much.
It's interesting.
No, it's not.
But you know what's functional? 7 years of Spanish.
Yeah, literally anything but a dead language.
Zach majored in a dead language.
Yeah. No, I didn't major in it. But,
that's why you're here, not here.
Yeah. So, yeah, this is a pretty standard Hugo match. Augusto Guillermo does... damn it.
You can look at my eyes every time you do it. And it just makes me... I'm trying to laugh at the microphone.
I can't do it.
Hugo on the bottom most of the time.
Yeah. Hugo pulls guard. He does some... So... Augusto does a thing here that I really, really liked early on. Hugo has this... He has a half butterfly and a collar sleeves, like same side collar sleeves setup, and does a really nice thing that we've seen him do before, where he off balances Augusto, pulls him forward a little bit.
Yeah, this whole game,
absolutely his A game.
This whole match was Hugo's A game on display. He gets that cross side collar and sleeve. He postures you down. He turns you to the side. He's either going to knee bar you or he's going to sweep you.
But what he does, he does his from that position. He does his setup twice in this match. The first time. So twice in the match, he elevates him, almost like for an elevator sweep. But we've seen Hugo do this before, where he sort of pauses when he gets you up in the air elevated, and then makes sure that your hands can't touch the mat, and then clears his non-elevating leg. So not the leg that was not in the butterfly, the leg that's on the outside. He clears that leg, and then twists or spins completely around, and then throws the now cleared leg around to lock in a knee bar position. Yes. We've seen him do it multiple times before. And
Go back and watch his match with Cyborg at the 2019 World Champion Nogi Worlds. That was his finishing sequence on Cyborg. And like this is Hugo's bread and butter. This is why I love Hugo's knee bar game so much, because it is so consistent. You know what he's doing. You've seen him do it. And I love the setup here because it comes all around, but he has control while he's doing it.
But in the first attempt at this, Augusto was fucking prepared for it, and it was amazing. It was like a really, really nice defense, and he leans forward, puts both hands on the mat, and then essentially floating high steps backward, and he twists his hips. He's like doing a handstand while also high stepping back, and twists his hips perfectly to land in essentially what is an over-under position. And then he wasn't able to like collect the actual over-under grips and start passing. Hugo inverted, and then ended up back to pulling guard.
Yeah.
But it was a really, really nice defense. This thing that we've seen Hugo do a bunch of times, and we know he's really, really good at. And then later in the match, Hugo does the same thing, but this time I think was probably aware of that defense.
Yeah.
And Augusto tries to do it again, but Hugo was not letting him get his hands to the mat, and then he's able to hit that knee bar setup in the same way that we've seen him hit it before, with a little bit of an adjustment to defend against that
it's
particular
very similar
defense.
to the 50-50 knee bar that Herberth Santos does.
Yeah.
And where he pop out the backside of the knee bar and he goes underarm with the knee.
Yep.
And Augusto did a really great job of keeping his knee flared and keeping like the pressure on that foot, because that knee bar works really well when you make just enough space where they can come underneath you and turn like away.
Yeah.
But if you keep that middle distance maintained, like Augusto did for the entirety of like when he was in 50-50 here, it's very, very hard to actually spin under and around and push the guy away in order to get that knee bar. So it was very, very good defense. And Hugo goes for this knee bar, the setup from this 50-50 twice, and both times Guillermo loads the pressure on his leg that is going to basically be knee barred very, very well. You know, he forces the hands. It's a really, really great measured defense, because this knee bar works really well if someone either undercommits or overcommits to a defense, because if they push too much in either direction, you can spin them over, and Hugo is so good at bucking his hips up and getting on your hip line and pushing you over to finish this knee bar. Guillermo is like maintains that hip pressure the entire time, and never gets knee barred.
Yeah. It was an impressive display of calm in the process of that, too.
Yeah.
His defenses were fantastic. I really, really enjoyed that first defense that he played, but Augusto never really mounted too much of an offense.
He never really got close to a pass. I mean, he forced the inversion of Hugo once here,
but not enough to justify giving him the win over the... Again, the knee bar wasn't even really sunk in.
But you're attempting for submissions.
It was clearly... We've had this discussion a lot, where like
we have
there's control in terms of leg entanglements versus... But I think for this particular case, it was clear that the knee bar was at least 50% there. It wasn't just a leg entanglement situation. This was a scenario where you have the hips locked into place and you're just trying to extend the knee.
You're actively working to finish the submission. You have a position locked up that you are trying to finish a sub with.
Yeah, it wasn't just a position movement in my eyes here. And so I think I count that knee bar especially as a submission attempt. And I think that he had some other things that might be submission attempts or sweep advantages.
He was just more active from the bottom. Augusto was keeping a great job maintaining base and like pressure and kind of working to start getting into passing positions. But Hugo, for me, looked like the guy who was on the offensive and looking to sort of like, he was more in the driver's seat for the match. And in close matches like this, you have a submission attempt sort of, and you're in the driver's seat. I gave it to you. Kind of in parallel to the match we saw this weekend with Corey Sandhagen versus TJ Dillashaw, where it's like, and Sandhagen had a great post about, not too much in MMA, but it was just a really great fight. And I'm a big fan of watching the bantamweights fight, my people. And it was basically like, I did more. Corey's like, I did more damage here, but Dillashaw definitely controlled these areas of the fight more effectively. And it was just cool to see a really measured response like that from Sandhagen of like, and he broke down, exactly like how he thought the fight went. And I was like, yep, that's exactly how the fight went. Yeah. And he goes, if you judge it like this, I think I won. You judge it like this, I think he won. And it was like, oh yeah. And I watched it live and went, I think Dillashaw won that based on the criteria that Sandhagen basically had said.
Yeah, I didn't see that post, but it sounds similar.
It was like very well like thought out and like written. It was very short, but it was it's always cool to see someone have perspective on like the tactics it takes to win the fights and why they do or don't. This was one where, I think I very clearly gave it to Hugo here for similar reasons.
Yeah. Agreed. So I think we can move on.
Next match, you want to go to the Sanji match?
No, I think so in order, it was Moisinho versus Diaz.
Moisinho. Let's call him Coutinho.
Coutinho
defeated Pedro Diaz via decision. That was fight of the night for the black belts.
Yeah, it was a good fight. So Diaz pulls guard early and off of a foot sweep, and I thought it was just a really interesting guard pull. I really enjoy... I like that things are sort of moving this direction. And I think it's because rules are sort of changing. We're getting a little bit more AADC style rules where you kind of have to game the system a bit more. But I also think that it's just good practice where people are pulling guard a little bit more off of takedown attempts of some kind. So whether this was just a simple foot sweep.
He like went for a foot sweep. He gave it a good try, but as soon as he didn't make good contact with the foot, he pulled off of it. And it was like, I set up a thing, I tried a thing, it didn't work. I have a system of things that I'm working toward. I thought it was really funny you caught the same thing in the match.
Yeah.
I have a system of things that I'm working for off of a failed takedown that is the guard pull that I probably want anyway, but I'm going to go for the takedown to get the 2 if I can.
Yep.
And we're just, even in the gi, we're seeing more of people setting up guard pulls off of takedown sequences.
I've always made the argument with people that I'd coach that you should be doing this because, especially when you get not at the professional level, when you're at like mid-tier levels and local tournaments, the refs maybe aren't as aware.
Guys that we're coaching, Zach.
Yeah, the guys that I'm coaching. They're not as aware, the refs might not be as aware as you are at the professional level. And there are often times where if you go to pull guard and the other person kind of did a funny thing, now you have 2 points against you for pulling guard. But if you make an attempt at a takedown whatsoever, whether it's a foot sweep or a shot or touching the leg with your hand, like it doesn't really matter. If you do something to put yourself in the assertive role and then pull guard, put yourself on the offensive, then pull guard, there's no question about whether it was a takedown against you or not. So you're reducing the chances that you get a bad call.
Yes.
And also I think it makes your guard pulls a little easier, but it was actually always, early on at least, always about don't let someone get points for you pulling guard, you know?
Yeah.
And now I think we're seeing it more at the professional level.
Especially at the lower weights, too. We've seen a lot of people, like particularly look at like the Mendes brothers, like got really good at getting 2 points off a guard pull.
Yeah.
Like the timing on it was beautiful. And we've seen that really come into the meta where you're watching a lot of guys that are known guard pullers get 2 scored on them, not infrequently because people are like, I'm doing the thing I need to do from a standing position, throwing some sort of foot sweep or takedown or touching your leg or doing something that I'm never going to get a takedown off of, but I'm initiating and then you're pulling guard. In the rule set, it counts. And so,
and it should count in the rule set. I think that's fair.
It totally should, and it's good, but it's just best practice then in order to counter that, to get scored on by pulling guard, you initiate some sort of takedown offensive and then pull off of that. There's never a question of like, oh, he initiated a takedown, it didn't work, he pulled off of his own initiation, the other guy doesn't get points for that. It's also really hard to counter a takedown with a takedown guard pull. Yeah. Like, it's just really hard to ever score points off of that because just in meta-wise, it works. It's hard to interrupt that. So
I agree. And so I noticed it and thought it was a really nice guard pull for that reason, and something that people should probably go back and check because it was a worthwhile thing to do.
My back's been broken for years now. I love the foot sweep guard pull because you do it, they make a little space, you pull where you want to pull.
Yeah, it's nice. And then there was this like crazy athletic showing of guard pulling, and I think it was
Cushinho is on the bottom. Cushinho pulls, and then Cushinho does what is essentially like a balloon sweep variation over his head while like tracking Diaz.
Yeah.
As he comes over and almost tries to pass off of it.
Yeah, but then Cushinho comes to his feet and then pulls guard again right away. But I think it felt like a very IBJJF like trained response.
Yes.
Where he realized that guard pull might be a sweep because he didn't give enough time after whatever had happened prior to. So then he stands back up right away. Like it felt very like, which I don't think in Fight to Win it would have counted as a sweep and they would have cared much.
No, I mean
because the points they're not pointed. But
there's not points, and also he didn't. It isn't a sweep. Like in the rules for IBJJF and like for other tournaments, it is a sweep. But if you're actually looking at like in reality at a professional level, you watch like he pulled. And then he pulled again. Like you know what a sweep pull is versus like a pull, where it's like I had to pull because I was getting swept, and like a guy decides to pull.
And I think Fight to Win has that discretion, but it felt very much like he like pulled and then he hit his butt down and was like, oh shit, and then stood back up because maybe it was a strategic decision. Yeah, it might have been a strategic decision elsewhere. Otherwise,
Cushinho's a guy that will do that though. He'll pop up and pop down, and he'll muck with you in that like in the pulling area where it's like he'll pull on you and then come up and pull you. Like I don't know if this guy's gonna pull and try to take me down when I pull or like Cushinho is very, very good at like his up and down movement, and he's always a guy that people struggle to keep in the same place for long periods of time, which is kind of why I like watching him play. He also has some really fun lapel stuff from the bottom that he'll do, and he's really active with it. Yeah. And I like his level of activity. We keep banging the table a ton today, Zach. I'm doing it, you're doing it.
The wrong spot.
I was going to move it, and you were like, I got it.
No,
and you didn't move it.
Didn't move it.
I told you I was going to move it.
I'm blaming you.
That's fine. We can do that still. I've done 200 of these. I should know better at this point. Overall,
yeah, so that was a little interesting exchange. It's very athletic and seemed to take a lot of energy, but both of these guys seem fine. In the end, Cushinho pulls guard, and he's working a lot of lasso guard, which is something he does. We know he's a lasso.
He's one of the guys
player.
that we see play lasso and Fight to Win more than anyone that I can think of off the top of my head. He plays a lot of lapel guards and lasso guards.
Yeah, and at one point, Diaz stands up, and Cushinho's able to collect his foot, and then Diaz sits back down, but on the way to sitting back down, Cushinho's able to lock in the lasso and in the process of Diaz coming back down to his knees, and then immediately hits a sweep off of the lasso just by sort of kicking Diaz's hips back and controls the foot.
Timing on it was beautiful.
Yeah, the timing was really, really nice. And then before Cushinho can come to the top, Diaz is able to get back to standing, and so there's actually no sweep on it, but it was a really nice technique. And what I thought was really cool about it was that it was a very timing-based technique. Like, he was able to collect the foot, and that's a good start. But while Diaz had his elbows in so that he didn't get caught elsewhere or caught with something else on his way back down, Diaz was doing the right thing and being safe, but Cushinho took the opportunity to lock in the lasso, which he was having a really hard time getting squared away the right way throughout most of the match.
Yeah, Diaz was doing a good job with his positional fighting and the grip fighting of preventing himself from getting postured down in order to get the lasso in. He did a really good job of consistently fighting the knees and fighting the legs down so that Cushinho could never drive his hips up and get into a preferred lasso guard position, which is what you need to be doing.
Yeah. So it was a nice opportunity attack, and I really liked that. Cushinho also hits a beautiful elevator sweep, and then Diaz does a really nice defense and is able to stabilize a sort of fundamental base immediately on hitting the mat. This elevator sweep was beautiful. Diaz was completely off the ground, hands and feet
moment of the match.
way off the ground.
I was like, that was a cool sweep.
And Cushinho starts inverting to finish it, and Diaz twists his hips and lands in a base like nothing ever happened. It was really nice defense off of a really nice sweep. So this is a really cool exchange from both of them.
And then Cushinho ends with a footlock.
Yeah, a weak one. We don't count footlocks in the last 30 seconds.
Nope.
Sometimes I do, but most of the time we don't. But Cushinho was still in charge of the match, I think.
Yeah,
Diaz had some really nice defenses, things that are worth looking at in terms of what is a quality defense to these things.
Well, how he shut down the lapel game was
awesome.
Very, very well. You saw the specific things that he was doing with his hands to prevent Cushinho from driving his hips and collecting his hips up his legs.
Yep.
And it's something that we don't see a ton of people able to do while still playing in the range that Cushinho wanted to play in. And that was the thing that kind of struck me was he was still in the range that Cushinho wanted to operate in, but he was doing a really good job of preventing the climbing up of the legs. And a lot of people, they can do either or, they can't do both.
Yeah. But in the end, didn't amount much of an offense himself. So we end up with Cushinho taking it. And I think it was justified win. It was much more on the offensive throughout the match. So
fun match. Next match, we have anything else on that?
Nope.
Next match, we have Xande Ribeiro defeating Felipe Trovo via decision.
Yeah.
Xande wins this one in the last, seals it in the last 30 seconds.
No, I think he won it in the last 30 seconds. Well, I would say. So Trovo started this match with a guard pull and then a fantastic series of chained submissions. I had to write it down here because he did so many things all tied in a row. He started with a butterfly, sits up into a Kimura, uses that Kimura very strategically because he has a double butterfly. He uses the Kimura very strategically to off-balance Xande enough to clear his opposite leg. And so he's got the Kimura on his left side and he clears his right leg.
Yep.
And then as Xande pressures back in to defend the Kimura after loosening it a bit by sitting up, Trovo is able to transition into the omoplata and does a really nice job transitioning. Well, I think he might have attempted a triangle initially, but I don't.
It was one of those.
I don't think it was.
You're probably not going to triangle Xande from here, and I think he knew that too. I mean, he went for it.
To me, it looked
really
basically like an immediate move to an omoplata, but the omoplata was sort of there. I thought it was a real submission attempt.
I mean, it's no-gi, so I never count them.
I think you can finish them, but
you can, but
not at the professional level that much.
No, you also not Xande. You're not going to finish Xande with no-gi omoplata.
So he starts with the Kimura, uses that to free his leg, transitions to the omoplata, then checks down to the leg and starts attacking a knee bar, and then transitions that knee bar into a double leg figure 4 where he's attacking toe holds, and then Xande clears the knees from that, and as a last just just a one thing to top everything off. He jumps on a guillotine out of nowhere at the end, and Xande defends that well. But my point was just that, like,
the guillotine transition at the end. I like guillotines. I was like,
Sure.
that's actually like a little more. That's a little like deeper than I anticipated it being after that entire sequence. It was such a big positional change at the end. I went, you have chained all of this together, and I love things that go from top end, like a fundamental Kimura, all the way to like omoplata over. Then from the omoplata, because you're on the leg, you go to the leg, and you go for the toe hold, and then Sanji's like, yeah, I'm going to keep defending this, and then he pulls it out, and there's usually a natural break there. But one of the things I love about Trovo's game, and he does it, and he shows it every time we cover him, he does it. When you take a break after he tries to do something on you, he'll throw one more. He'll do one more thing, and it's usually a guillotine. And so it just makes me laugh that in this match, he gets out, and they kind of go, okay, and then jumps the guillotine.
Yeah, I really like that. And I think that's something, again, that we should try to encourage people to do, those little breaks when it's polite to back off. You don't legally have to. I have
a class, specifically like one of my modules in one of my classes, and actually it's frequently I put it into the back end of classes, is like in the middle, at the end of techniques, basically going, hey, you can rest here, but if you want to go to the next thing, like, go to the next thing, because they are ready for you to rest.
Yeah.
So don't be ready for them to rest. Make sure that you're resting in a place that you can rest. And if they're ready to rest, make sure you don't give them the rest if you think you can get something going.
Yeah, fuck that. Never rest.
No. Yeah, but
so then so Trovo jumps up for the guillotine, gets defended. I thought it was a really nice sequence, though, and that put him far in the lead in my eyes until basically the end of the match.
Anything was super deep in like a way he was going to finish, but he was going for a submission chain in which Xande had to continually positionally defend all of them. Like, there was nothing where I was like, ooh, he might get the knee bar, but he was like, if Xande doesn't defend this now, Trovo's going to lock up something more and then finish.
I think in every one of those cases, Xande had to legitimately defend the submission attempt.
Yes.
If he hadn't legitimately defended the submission attempt, it wouldn't have happened. Those are all
single point submissions that you're racking up.
I think so.
None of them are like 3-point submission attempts, but they were all like individual things that.
But there were 5 single point submission attempts, which counts in my eyes. And so, I mean, I don't actually know how the scoring works for.
That's what they do.
Yeah, but so they were multiple real submission attempts in my eyes.
Yes.
And then Xande gets some ground back. With some passing attempts, he controlled the position for a while.
He did, and this is where I thought kind of Xande started to take over a bit in his top control and passing.
I wouldn't even have said that he started to take over because he wasn't actually able to mount any real offense. Trovo did a really neat thing where when Xande was sort of starting to get past in half guard, Trovo reached down and grabbed the ankle on Xande's outside leg and sort of reaped it up, pulled it up towards his face, and that extended Xande's leg out in a way where Xande couldn't continue the pass, couldn't continue to pressure, and that it essentially broke down twice. It looked like Xande was gaining ground and that he was going to be able to maybe actually pass, and then Trovo did this thing. Yep. And it stopped Xande from doing what he wanted to do. Twice that happened, and so
it is a really great. If you can get there, it is a really great counter to certain passing attempts because it turns the hips and the body, and then you essentially can't keep putting forward pressure into the pass in the way you were doing.
It's just something that you don't really see at top levels. Worked at top levels very much, and it was interesting that he was able to pull it off against Xande, who's obviously an incredible passer, just in general.
It's like the thing he's known for.
Yeah, right. So then they end up back on the feet, and Xande pulls guard, and Xande's closed guard, again, is legendary. I mean, everything the man does is pretty legendary, but like his closed guard is one of the things that he's best known for, and he plays closed guard for a little while. Yeah. He plays closed guard for a little while, and then sort of snaps on almost out of nowhere. The
commentary is going like, oh, he's got to do something. And then
he does.
As the commentary saes that, he like locks up this really, almost like a quick high guard. He transitions all the way over with it and locks up this like pretty deep armbar and then starts to extend it. And I went, ooh, Trovo's going to have to like put some muscle into this to get out of it. Yeah. Trovo keeps his composure, stands right up next to Xande, and then just gives like a good like nice little lawnmower.
He had to circle around the back to actually get all the way out, I think. To get his elbow out, he had to turn him over and circle around the back.
He lifted and he turned when he did it.
Yeah. As Trovo gets out, but it was tight. And there was definitely a second in there where you thought, okay, this is probably over.
Yeah.
But then that was in the last minute of the match?
Yeah. I don't
or so, maybe a minute and a half.
It was the last big moment of the match that I noticed, and I went, ooh, Xande very well could have taken that because that was by far the deepest sub of the night. Your little sub attempts, like, how do you weigh? And I was like, I kind of would lean Xande on that.
And how many of them do you count?
Well,
the little sub attempts,
really
how many
great
actually
sequence,
got a point?
And then Xande with the passing attempts, and then that final submission attempt that was deep to kick it to end it. I went, I'm probably going to lean Xande here.
Yeah, no, I think it was a legitimate win for Xande. Trovo was on the defensive more for a longer portion of the match. Yeah. And Xande had what was by far the closest thing to a legitimate submission attempt in the match. And he does take it, I think rightfully so. And it was nice to see Xande get such a dominant performance in there against Trovo, who's nothing.
No, Trovo's he's got a really fun game, and I like watching. I really like watching Trovo.
He's been kind of on a tear lately.
Yeah, he's been
looking really good. He's a guy
we've seen more and more and more of, and it's been great. Fight to Win paid out a total of $25,567. I love seeing the payouts. I love seeing guys get paid. That does it for previews, for recaps this week. Let's move into the preview section. Let's start with BJJ Bet 2. Who's next?
This is a good bracket.
This is a really fun card.
Looking good.
We have a couple super fights. And we have a crazy 88 kilogram GP. Do you want to start
with the super fights?
Start with the super fights. Felipe Pena versus Nicholas Margali.
In the gi, looking awesome. Very excited to see that. Have we seen Felipe Pena in the gi recently?
Yeah.
When was the most recent we saw him?
We just saw Pena versus like 2 weeks ago. We just saw it.
Was that in the gi?
It was in the gi. I swear it was in the gi.
You could be right. I might just be forgetting it. Or maybe I didn't even see it.
Throw me off. Panza.
Oh, right.
We saw him versus BJJ Stars. Panza, Eric Muniz, Gutenberg Pereira, Herber Santos in the last one was a no-gi match.
I actually missed most of that event, which is why I'm not remembering seeing him in the gi recently.
So, been on a tear. Pena's been on an absolute tear. Margali is coming off a loss to Gutenberg Pereira. That was that super surprising win that we saw when Pereira just looked absolutely crazy.
And
I think the last time
Margali's had a tough go of it since the end of 2019. Lost to Kynan, lost to Victor Hugo, beat Leandro Lowe, but then lost to Pereira. And that's it since 2019.
Yeah.
Prior to that
in 2020.
In 2020,
2019 had a pretty good year. 2018 he went 100%
That's what I was about to say. He was destroying people in 2019. So it got to a point when we were saying, when it came time to predict winners of things, we were saying, well, it's hard to bet against Margali right now.
It's still hard. Honestly, it's still hard to bet against Margali.
Sure.
So him right now, I'm looking through his record. Is that... No, it's not. That's Luis Panza. I'm trying to find out the last time these two guys have fought. And I think that he has a win over Pena. I think this is the most recent win in the 2018 Worlds was by Ezekiel Cho.
Yeah.
So this will be a rematch from 3+ years ago. Very curious to see what both guys look like because, again, we haven't seen a ton of Margali recently. And Margali's had had a rough go at it recently. Pena has looked... unstoppable, I think is the technical term. I kind of want to lean Pena again.
I've seen him a lot more lately.
Yeah, and
apparently I haven't, but
he's just looked really good. He's just consistently looked really good against pretty top level competition. Again, we haven't seen him a ton in 2021.
Yeah.
We've seen him 3 times at BJJ Stars, and that's it. Once in 2020 against Herber Santos. That's it.
Yeah.
So there's a bunch of X factors in this match, but I still do want to lean Pena.
I'm excited to see because we haven't seen much of them we haven't seen much of them in 2020.
No, 2021.
We didn't see much of them in 2020 and haven't seen much of them in 2021.
Okay.
And I'm excited to see the match. I'm not going to really make a prediction on it because I have not seen much of them. I haven't watched them closely enough to really make a good prediction on this, but it's exciting to see the two of them against each other, and I think it's an appropriate matchup.
Next match, we have a match I'm super amped for. Heavyweight Tiny Porfirio versus Gabriela Passanelli. I don't remember the last time I've seen Porfirio. It might have been after her world's title got stripped at the end of 2019, I think. Let me look at her. She did. Oh yeah, the Fionn Davies match at Grapple Fest. That was the last time that I've seen her, and that was in 2020. That was middle of 2020. Before that, 2019 ADCC was the last time that we saw Porfirio.
Yeah. So, interesting to see what happens when she's back. Mm-hmm. Right, these are hard matches to predict when people haven't been.
It's a super hard match to predict. Also, Gabriela Pessanelli has looked really, really good.
Yeah.
She's had some struggling. She's had some tough matches as well. Again, this is for me a huge X factor match because I just don't know where either of them are right now. Gabby has been more active in 2020, but she hasn't competed at all in 2021. Although she's on like a 15-fight win streak, with her last loss being at 2019 Worlds. But Porfirio has been extremely dominant as well. Just haven't seen both of them in 8 months, or really, 8+ months.
Quite a while.
So super fun match. I don't even have a pick for that.
Yeah, hard to predict these things, but it'll be these are all be good matches.
Mm-hmm. Also, we have on the super fight card, we have Mateus Gabriel versus Luan Carvalho, and we have Sam Nagai versus Mateus Onada. Some other matches as well.
Yeah,
those all should be super fun.
Five solid super fights, plus the 88 kilogram GP,
which is fucking
awesome,
stacked. We have on the left, what is this, left side?
Yeah,
left side of the bracket, Leandro Lowe. First round, we have Leandro Lowe versus Rafael Pagani. We also have Tanquinho, Husamar Paul Harris versus William Tackett.
Yeah.
Then on the other side of the bracket, top side, we have Lucas the Hulk Barbosa versus Servio Tulio. And we have Michael Galvao versus Mauricio Oliveira.
Yep.
So, 4 things I got to say. 1, we could get a Hulk and Tackett rematch. We saw that at Road ADCC a couple weeks ago.
That was
Hulk took that pretty cleanly.
Pretty dominant performance.
34-0.
There. Yeah.
We could see Tanquinho versus Leandro Lowe. We could see Tackett versus Leandro Lowe. Mm-hmm. That is honestly, of all these matches, Michael Galvao is the thing that exists in this bracket.
Yeah.
Of all these matches, I am super curious to see how Tanquinho versus William Tackett goes.
Yeah, I think so. We haven't seen a lot of Tanquinho.
I think the last time I saw him, I could look him up, but I decided not to because I'm going to do it off the top of my head, was Jiu-Jitsu World League versus Gary Tonin. Or was it Gordon or Gary? I think it was
Gary.
Yeah, that's the last time
I think that's the last time I remember seeing him.
That was 2019. That was right after
That doesn't mean he hasn't competed since then, but the last really big match that I can remember him in, and he had been looking, Tanquinho had been looking less like Tanquinho leading up to the last couple times I remember him having matches. Like, he had been focusing on MMA a lot more, and his jiu-jitsu didn't look like what I had remember
it wasn't
seeing.
ADCC Tanquinho.
No, it was.
I think the best way to put it is his best performance ever.
I mean, he was still a world-class competitor, but it didn't seem like he was at the best that he'd ever been.
Correct.
And it'll be interesting to see now. In his Instagram posts and things like that, they have been less MMA oriented as far as I've seen.
He's doing much more jiu-jitsu now,
and so it seems like he's refocused on jiu-jitsu, possibly. Yeah. And if he's refocused entirely on jiu-jitsu, maybe we see that version of him again. And if we see the AADC version of Tanquinho here, it's going to be hard to say that he loses to Tackett, at least right now. Tackett can pull wins out of nowhere, but I think AADC Tanquinho beats current Tackett.
I do. I just don't think we're going to see ADCC Tanquinho again.
I don't know.
I think Tanquinho, we've seen him so tentative in his last couple of matches. I think he's going to definitely have a little bit of a size advantage, and when he has the size advantage, he will try to bully guys. Look at the look at the Gary Tonin match at Polaris. Like, that is a prime example of like when he has a size advantage that he's willing to leverage on guys. He will push that.
Yeah.
And I think on Tackett, he's going to have it. So I think he's going to engage. But Tackett is a guy that if you engage with him super hard, and in the way that Tanquinho will do it, where he will drop for legs so hard and aggressively, like, that is such the current meta style of how a lot of guys play, especially in the training room. When you've seen all the training footage from Tackett, I think Tackett was going to be ready for that style of, the dog is behind me. I couldn't move a chair back. I think Tackett is going to be ready for those styles of leg lock entries, and this could be a real, like, I think this is a winnable match for Tackett.
Oh, yeah, I think so.
In a very, like, I think it will surprise a lot of people. I think this is a very stylistically winnable matchup for Tackett. And then I think Leandro Lowe goes through and beats Rafael Pagani. I think the last Nogi match we saw from Lowe was 2017 ADCC. I think he was announced for the GP in 2018.
Had a recent one, didn't he?
Probably Zach. I'm probably wrong about
he
that.
had one just very recently, and it was I
think we just said this, didn't we? Like, hasn't had a no-gi match in 3 years. Yeah, no, it was on BJJ Stars.
Yeah,
he just had one. I'm an idiot.
Yeah, he
versus
just
Alexander. No, that was a cross collar choke. Cross choke. Andrew Muniz.
Okay, so we just hadn't seen him in a while in general. We haven't seen him in no-gi then.
I think that's correct. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. That was it. So his first match that we've seen him in at all recently was Muniz at BJJ Bet. Now we're seeing his first no-gi match, probably like you said,
4 years.
In 4 years.
So,
yeah.
Rafael Pagini is hard to get through, but Leandro is just such he's such a hard guy to bet against.
Yeah,
and he can just stop so many people. He tactically, I think Leandro's probably one of the hardest people to fight. And then Keenan's even talked about how he can adapt so well to any situation or just do what he needs to win, much like Buchecha in that way.
That's why those matches, Buchecha matches are legendary.
It's that's why he
because they both did that.
Do what they can do to win. They need to win. So I'm super curious if we get Tackett versus Leandro. That's a match that is super exciting. Or Tanquinho versus Leandro on that side of the bracket.
I think either of those matches. I think either of those matchups are going to be really interesting.
Yeah,
and I mean, if Pagani's able to pull off a win there, that's exciting on its own.
Yeah, it's awesome. And then we have an awesome match versus Tanquinho or Tackett.
Right. I think the left side of the bracket is going to be really exciting.
This bracket for me is a toss-up of anything could happen, and that's always really exciting bracketing for me. Because you're I want to see all the matches. Awesome. I want to see all the second round matches. That's awesome. And then anything can happen because it's no-gi.
Yeah.
And it's Brazil.
Right.
And Tackett's in Brazil fighting a bunch of Brazilians, which is props to you, dude.
Yeah, good job.
Good on you. That's going to be
We don't actually see a lot of Americans in BJJ Bet.
For a reason.
That's probably for a good reason.
Don't see a lot of guys in America go fight in Brazil because it's real hard to win.
Yeah.
Just saying. Other side of the bracket, we have...
Worlds.
Just like Worlds, yeah.
Weird.
We have not Leandro. We have you got me thinking about all the examples of guys getting Brazilian, and I'm just years ago.
I'm gonna interject with a story here because I have to. No-gi Worlds, I want to say 2011 maybe. My coach at the time, Pablo Castro, was the head grappling coach at Strong Style in Cleveland. He was in the finals against. I'm not going to remember who it was off the top of my head, but
You do this to me every time, and I'm like, it's this guy.
Yeah, you remember who it is.
And then every time I don't need that information ever again, I delete it. And then every time you tell the story, I'm like, great, I need the name of the guy. Because you never know the name of the guy.
Yeah, I never remember the name of the guy. But he was a long-standing player in the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu world. A guy that had won Worlds himself a couple times.
It was no-gi.
It was no-gi. Yeah. But so I remember Pablo going into that match, and everyone saying this is going to be fucking, we got to be careful. But Pablo's coach at the time, his corner was Comprido, a legendary Brazilian guy himself.
Had the fastest win at Worlds for years until Mikey beat it.
Yeah, and then Pablo has a name that could be kind of construed as Brazilian, and so I remember at the end of the match, everyone being like, that was surprisingly fair. They definitely thought you were Brazilian.
Well, back then, that was a real.
It was a very real thing. It was a very, very real thing.
And
2010, 11, yeah.
So I was referred to this show podcast years, 5-6 years ago. I started to make a compilation of every time someone got Brazilian. And then I realized I was not a good video editor, so I stopped. Yeah. But I pulled a bunch of I have a bunch of lists.
They're not hard to find from back then.
Back then, no. That's it's not uncommon. So moving on, the sport has changed. We have the right side of the bracket. I think Hulk beats Servio Tulio. It is a tough match. Tulio is game, but Hulk has just looked unworldly the past couple.
He's looked incredible.
I think Michael Galvão beats Mauricio Oliveira. Again, I will not bet against Michael Galvão for anything. The Hulk versus Michael Galvão match that we're probably going to see is going to be crazy.
Yeah, it's going to be crazy. Both of these guys are well known for aggressive, offensive jiu-jitsu. We've seen Michael Galvão playing a game that is relatively unseen recently, where his submission attack aggression is off the charts.
Yeah.
And Hulk is the kind of guy that really likes to play against people that are chaining and attacking submissions regularly because he's so positionally dominant.
The stylistic matchup these two guys are going to have is
so good.
I'm so curious because Hulk is also a guy that can punish you for that style.
He will punish. He looks for it.
But Michael Galvão is also a guy that sometimes can remain unpunished for it.
Yes.
In like a way where it's like, how did you get out of that thing that you just made the guy
And how are you in another submission attempt
Yes.
after what just,
So
it's
I expect Michael
very
Galvao
exciting
to
match.
come out guns ablazing,
Oh, yeah.
much like he did versus Pedro Rocha
Yeah.
at middleweight GP for Third Coast, where he's just like, bro, you have just thrown the kitchen sink at this dude. Given how hard the Rocha match was, and Rocha was a little bit bigger, I do think that Hulk takes this just based upon like, oh, I gotta slow you down a bit. I gotta be Hulk. That's what I think he does. I think Galvao makes it real interesting though, because I think he puts him in danger a couple separate times. But I think Hulk just bees Hulk and just Hulk's big for 88.
Yeah.
I think Hulk slows him down. I think Hulk gets on top, and I think Hulk like tries to prevent Michael Galvao from like doing anything. And I think Hulk is one of the best guys in the world at doing that.
Yeah, I think so too.
So I think Hulk moves through, although having some crazy off the wall sub from Galvao wouldn't shock me. It would shock me, but I would not be like. It would not surprise me if that's the right word.
Yeah.
Like, oh, it's
That doesn't make any sense.
It should. So who do you think we got in the finals with that? I know you hate pick. I'm like the only person on the team that likes making picks.
I hate picking.
Everyone else hates making picks.
I like talking about the dynamic of the matchups, but I'm not good at picking picks. That's why I don't
So
gamble.
I think Hulk is going to win that side. I kind of think
such a toss-up.
I'm going to go Leandro because it's Leandro. Whenever I've picked against Leandro because he's old, I realize he's like 34, and I'm like, he's not that old. He just has a little gray in the beard.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah,
but it's first time in 5 years doing nogi. Like, it's such a weird. The left side of the bracket is such like a weird. Anyone can
This
take
is
it.
a well-designed bracket for the people that are in it. I think that the right side of the bracket is more stable and predictable. The left side of the bracket is chaos, and I have no idea what to pick for the left side of the bracket given the information that we have.
Love that it's chaos.
Yeah, I like that it's chaos, but I think that it is chaos. Like, what do we expect from any of these guys?
I think Hulk
anyone
takes
could take it.
Anyone can take it, which is awesome. Like, there's I think Tulio is the dark horse. I think Mauricio Oliveira is the dark horse, and Pagini is the dark horse. Like, all those guys can punch
but
up.
they could.
And in their respective brackets with the rule set, like, can get something done.
Sure.
Like, that's like they can all show up and they're all dangerous in their own. They are all crafty in their own ways and have a very specific game that if you again at the black belt level, if you play into their game, very very adept at it, and it's interesting.
What I don't want to see is a Tackett Hulk rematch in the finals, just because we saw that so recently and Hulk was so dominant in that match. I would prefer that Tackett have a bit more time to figure out and train for whatever happened there, and then possibly see a rematch with Hulk later on once he's had some more time. Because when you see two matches right in a row that are dominant like that, you don't get a rematch for any good amount of time. And I think Tackett is the kind of jiu-jitsu player that can learn from what happened there and get better, and then have a really good match that he potentially wins with Hulk in the future. But I don't think it's 2 weeks in the future.
Much like the Tex Johnson match.
Yeah.
First match was like rough.
Yep.
You know, he looked good. His passing looked very good in that match.
Yeah.
But in the rematch, entirely different guy we saw.
And he had a couple months in between for that. At least a month.
I think it was like 6 or 8 months.
Yeah.
I think it was a while. It was like
I am not remembering timing on it, but he had a
good
some
period of time, and
I
then
know.
looked like a completely different guy in a similar stylistic matchup. So.
I don't want the matchup again in 2 weeks. I think that taints the matchup in the future, and I think that we'll see both of these guys around for a long time, and we'll see them again.
They're both going to be 88 for a while.
Yeah, it would be nice if that rematch happened in 6 months to a year instead of in 2 weeks after the first one.
Yeah.
So I hope we don't see that. I think a low Hulk match would be interesting. Low Galvao might be the most interesting match.
I want to see that. That's low key the match that I want to see, because with Low there's so many questions because I haven't seen him Nogi in so long.
Yeah.
Like but he's so crafty. With Galvao, also so crafty, but he's gonna push. Like Leandro is a guy that gets tired.
Yep.
And like I'm very curious what Galvao will be able to do if Leandro gets a little tired, but Leandro is so crafty. Like that's low key the match we want to see in the finals. Yeah. I just don't think we see it.
I don't think Galvao beats Hulk. I think Hulk is in the finals. I would love to see Galvao Low.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
That'd be a cool match.
So that does it for BJJ Bet. On to Fight to Win 179. Right now, I actually don't have any matchups for this.
Yeah.
This happens on July 30th, so this Friday. it should be fun. Fight to win. Their main, co-main, and triple from the top mat have been great. Ryan McGuire from Third Coast is now the matchmaker. I'm very excited to see what he does for matching.
I've really had really consistent matches. I mean, for 179 events. So
yeah,
Fight to Win's always
Fight to
exciting.
Win for 130 events now for a reason, because they put on some dope ass matches.
Yeah. It sucks a little bit that we don't know what those matches are going to be, but I expect.
Yeah, and then Ryan Sigurdsson matchmaker. They're gonna build out some more like.
Yeah, it might take a bit of time to shift things around a bit.
That's what I assume. So we're gonna get more consistent, like more more advanced notice on some of these matchups, and it'll hopefully give us chance to preview them more effectively, which I'm amped for, because I love making picks. Everyone else hates making picks. I love making picks. Even when I'm wrong, I'm like, I got that wrong, but I got the dynamic of the match right, and that's what I'm happy about.
That's why I like talking about the dynamic of the match and not the winner.
Yeah. So that should be fun next week. I think in 2 weeks we have Polaris. UK and Ireland versus Team USA. Yeah. That should be an awesome event. Very, very excited for that. I don't think we have anything else. Let me actually look up, Zach. What do you got going on this weekend? Anything fun?
This weekend? No, this weekend I'm not doing anything. I'm intentionally not doing anything.
Nice. We did some commentary this last weekend. That was fun. I enjoy doing commentary down in Virginia.
Was good.
It's a lot of fun.
Did an event down there, ran pretty good.
August 15th is SUG, so that's in 3 weeks from now. They have a picture of Gary Tonin on their poster.
Interesting.
It's the splash screen, and Tonin hasn't been on SUG in 4 years, but it's just funny that's the picture that's on the top banner. So yeah, that should be fun. Other than that, I got nothing else. I mean, I'm just doing PT. I got cleared to swim this week.
And you already fucked yourself up with it,
immediately hurt myself just swimming 1,000 meters, and then hurt myself.
Did you do more than they told you to do?
No, they were like, you can swim. I was like, okay. And
did you say how much should I swim?
Well, I was swimming 2,000 meters before, so I cut it in half. I did breaststroke. I did it nice and easy, and then I hurt my leg again.
Seems like breaststroke's probably the worst stroke.
Well, it's even. There's no twisting.
Okay.
Yeah,
but also there's a lot of twisting.
I can do extension. I can do this is fine.
Oh, okay.
It's this motion that's bad. So it's touching my toes.
Okay.
I can touch my toes now. At PT, we did a reevaluation, and I touched my toes. I was like, I've done that in like 3 years.
Yeah.
Oh, we are making progress. But then I went swimming and
undid it all.
And I'm in some pain, which is annoying. But just gotta take it easy.
Here I am harassing you, but I coached on Friday and I was training a little bit. I have an LCL thing going on right now. I was training just a little bit, thinking. This will be fine.
A little bit.
I'll do thing. I will avoid using it in the way that I know that I shouldn't, because it only hurts if I put pressure on it in this exact way. And so then before we're even training, I'm going over the drill and giving an example of how I would do that drill, and I fucking pull a half butterfly and go to sweep with using the exact motion that I shouldn't be doing, and hurt my knee demonstrating a stupid fucking thing. And now I'm probably out for another 3 weeks, letting it heal before I can even pretend that I'm okay enough to.
So Zach, what I'm hearing is you're on next week.
Yeah, probably.
All right.
Probably.
So,
I can't do anything.
What's up, Zach? You're sadness you can be on the podcast this week.
At least I get to be around Jiu-Jitsu a little bit.
Yeah, and you get to talk about BJJ Bet, which is going to be awesome.
BJJ Bet will be nice.
We should get together and actually watch it, because that would be fun. And I would love to yell at my TV screen and watch Jiu-Jitsu.
Is Friday or Saturday night?
Yeah, that's a great question, Zach. I really didn't expect a follow-up question there.
Well,
it is on August 17th, Brazilian time. I have no idea what August 17th is. Wait.
No, that's not.
Oh, 17 o'clock. 17th. August 1st.
August 1st.
Yeah,
it's Saturday.
It is Saturday?
I think.
Yeah, it's Saturday.
No. Yeah, it's Saturday.
Yeah, what are we doing? We're watching Jiu-Jitsu. So, I got nothing else. As always in the show, we go off the rails more than we already did. Yeah. As always in the show, I'm your host, Maine. I'm the co-host.
Zach.
And we are the Grappling Around. We'll see you on the mat, whatever that is. Stay safe. If you like the show, please consider sharing it on Facebook with the folks at your gym. It's the best way that we grow the show, and we really appreciate it. You can reach out to us on email.
We also have Instagram. We have Facebook. We have Twitter. We have Google+.
Until that shuts down.
We have a website.
If you have an event you would like to have us cover, please let us know. If you have a name, like most people do, and you'd like to have us stop butchering it,
let us know.
Reach out to us. The show is also available on YouTube, Spotify, in addition to iTunes and every other podcast service. We very much appreciate your time, and thank you.